the like how huge of racism thing that there is, and I was like, hey, tell me about it, right? Because I've never experienced it, right? I mean, like my nationalities are like, or my ethnicities, like I'm Filipino, Korean, Portuguese, and Puerto Rican, which is not a common, I mean, which is not uncommon here in Hawaii. Like you have people that like, are multi-ethnic, right? So so kind of going back to your question, like you see those kinds of things going on in the mainland, like we don't have that level. And, people here, like they kind of tolerate certain things, but when it reaches a certain point, that's when people start being like, hey, come on, like, hey, calm down, like relax, like everybody's entitled to their own opinion and their different things. And so it's an interesting, definitely an interesting season or an interesting time.
Right. Well, I know for me, I'm used to Southern California. I'm used to in living in areas. I mean, Huntington Beach is predominantly white, but I didn't actually live there the majority of my life. I was actually there probably 5, 6 years. But Palm Springs and Banning used to a lot of Asians. There was a large Hmong community out there. Um, Native American, because you had a lot of gaming casinos out there and Native American tribes out there. And then I lived in San Diego and close to LA, and it's just like I'm used to all these different
Yeah.
melting pot races, and then you come out to Billings, Montana, and it's like it's predominantly white. And I mean,
98% white.
yeah. So and so the whole Black Lives Matter, um, it's kind of a non-issue, like because it's the Midwest. It's cold. There's not a lot of black people up here. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
Demographics. Now there are large native populations, so Native American populations up here, and I think that there would be something to be said about how how white people view natives and natives viewing people who aren't fellow natives.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so there's definitely some of that, but even then, I haven't um I haven't seen like I'm not seeing bad blood. I'm not even seeing interracial fighting up here. I mean, it's just everyone's just kind of keeping to themselves. Um, yeah, there's no rioting or nothing, So just definitely different than what I've been used to as as growing up in Southern California.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting. Like, I mean, I love California in that sense. Like, I mean, I have a lot of friends, and so I try to come back. I try to go and visit. Like once a year or whatever. But it's interesting because it's like everybody's kind of segregated in communities, right? Like so, like a lot of Asians, like Seal Beach or whatever, like from what I know, right? And like the Mexicans, they live different places or whatever, and so
Yeah.
it's interesting, how like because you don't have it here, right? Like everybody's just kind of mixed. I guess you have some like you have some towns here or some cities here that the Filipinos kind of are or the Samoans are or whatever, but because we're only on a small island, right? It's different.
Yeah, you can only go so far.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Montana's pretty big. I mean, it really was weird moving here and just driving for a long time and not seeing like a city, or like, it's like you really better make sure you have at least half a tank of gas because you
yeah.
know
It's like you
next
can't
next
buy ice cream at Costco, right?
yeah, yeah, I'm used to California. I mean, you could go up the whole state and you're going to run into a town. I mean, everything's just largely meshed together other than there's some agricultural fields and near Fresno, but even then, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just so dense. So yeah, well, I'm glad you guys are doing well. Are you how how are your church congregations doing in your observations, just church congregations handling the political climate and specifically obviously the election, but yeah, what are you observing?
You know, it's interesting because um you know, with COVID, it just adds a different thing, right? Like you're not able to see people, right? And like we just started up in person like gatherings again, you know, because we stopped again, like started up, stopped again. I mean, it's just our government here is crazy. But like I think we don't necessarily talk about it from up front, you know, like what our specific views are, you know, just because, you know, yeah, I mean, it's just, it is different, but if somebody asks, like we'll say, but we don't, you know, we don't necessarily debate things. I think um, I have one friend, like he was like all out for Trump, you know, which, you know, is, I mean, he was like sign waving and, you know, and everything, like dragging his newborn kids and all that to sign wave and all that. He was probably like on the extreme level, like at our church. You know, other guys like, you know, they'll say like, hey, these are the reasons why. But it's interesting. I have like that same friend that's from Georgia. Um, Maybe about like 2 years ago, he started posting like, and I don't post anything political or anything like on social media.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I post food and food. Like, you know, I mean, like, you know, I mean, like travel, you know, I mean, like, I just don't want to get into it. But it was interesting. Like, somehow my friend was like, why do you like, cause he asked, oh, what do you think about my post? Right. And I go, well, I wouldn't necessarily do that, but it's on you. But it was basically like calling out the president. Right. And I just said, like, hey, this is my humble thing. It's like, you know, like we got to just kind of be behind whoever is president, you know, like, and whatever values and things, right? And I said, I always vote my values, right? I always vote my values, right? And so he was like, I can't believe you voted for Trump then, right? And I go, well, like, it's kind of like at that time it was Hillary, right? And so it's like, let's pick the lesser of two evils. Like, literally, like, that's exactly what my senior pastor would tell people. And I'm like, yeah, you pick the lesser of two evils, right? This time around, it's like, I mean, like, I couldn't believe Biden said this, but it's kind of hilarious. But he says like, "Oh, our country's character is on the line." Like, yeah, it is. But you know, and it's sort of like, well, the character of the country is on the line. I mean, it's been on the line for like decades at this point, you know. And so,
right.
my thing is like, I'm gonna go and vote my values. Do I agree with everything that Trump does? No. Do I think that he has some flaw in his character? Yes. Do I have flaws in my character? Yes. Am I imperfect? Yes. Is he imperfect? Yes. I mean, you know, I that's kind of like the basis of my thing, you know. I mean, like, just yeah, yeah, just yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, Montana is very conservative, or at least Billings is. There's some liberal cities, but you know, by and large, most everybody here is pretty like it. What was weird when I moved here was moving to a place where it felt like the majority of people shared your values.
Yeah,
That was like noticeably different, you know, just and things that I would think would be pretty maybe simple or straightforward values, and just running into more people that shared that, it was like, whoa, you know.
yeah,
So there's not a lot of, I wouldn't say, animosity between like the left and the right. It's but the past week, a lot of people on our staff were just feeling very antsy and anxious, and you know, and I get that.
yeah,
You know, and it's like, well, what do we do if the person that we don't want gets elected? And I was like, well, the Lord's on his throne, you know, pray for the president, and then you get back to work. You
yeah,
know, it's
yeah, Yeah.
get back to doing what God's called you to do, where you're at. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
voted, I
Yep.
did what I could, and
Yep.
life's gonna move on, But
Yeah.
what about
And
you,
it's
Jet? What about you,
like,
Jet? Oh, sorry.
not like over here, like in Hawaii, we're like a very liberal state.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so it, like, even my father-in-law is like, he's the CNN fan, and so it's I can't have a discussion with him because he knows I'm Republican, right? He knows I'm conservative, right? So, yeah, it's hard. Oh,
Yeah. And what about you, Jesse?
Well, the majority of our church is, I mean, we've always joked that our church is your grandparents' church. So our median age of our church member is probably 63, 64. We have some young people, but it's your grandparents' church. I mean,
Yeah. Well, it's
when you
Palm
stand,
Springs.
yeah, I mean, we're God's holding tank. I mean, that's about what we are. And so when you stand in the back and you look out, it's just like a little cotton ball or a polished ball. I mean, there's really no blonde or dark. It's just either bald or white. And so
Right.
most of them, I think, are of the conservative side. There are some that are more liberal, which, I mean, that's the beauty of living in the United States.
Yeah.
And like my wife and I were just having this conversation, excuse me, yesterday and again today, and that was at what point did we lose the ability to have a conversation and be okay with somebody that has a different opinion or a different take than me? And when that went away, you get all these people that are hell bent one way or the other. And if you don't, matter of fact, this evening I was waiting for my wife. We had to come out for this party, and there was a guy, I've never seen him on TV before. I don't even know what I was watching, but he said that this election was an election of love and hate. And he said, I'm not talking about the people that were running it, but the backers. I mean, people love Trump. I mean, they love him to the point to where they will go and they will put themselves in harm's way. They'll go and go to these rallies without wearing masks, and they do everything because they love Trump. And on the other side, they hate Trump, and it has nothing to do. And so it becomes more of a, is love going to win or is hate going to win? And we've been based on a Judeo-Christian value that God is love, and that is what we have to this point exuded as a country. But now we're at this crossroads where it almost looks like this hate, and it's all over. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go or what you listen to or where you turn, that hate for him. I had a conversation one day and I said, okay, what do you like about Biden? Well, he's not Trump. Okay, well, don't use Trump's name at all and tell me what you like about Biden. Well, it doesn't really matter because they don't have. And on the flip side, when we did the presentation for Dr. Stewart, Brian and I had to do the Republican candidates. Well, they don't even have a platform this year. Their platform was 2016. So even them and none of the running people that were running for senator, they didn't have a platform. It was whatever he says we need to do, that's what we're going to do. So we've come to this point where you can't even have a normal conversation. I have an aunt who just can't believe that, I can't believe you would vote for somebody like that. I mean, he's just a jackass. Yeah, he is. I'm not going to dispute it.
oh
I
yeah.
mean, he's not the picture that I would love for the country to have, but I don't know anybody that loves the country more than him and has done more for the country than him. Does he say things off the cuff? He's his own worst enemy.
Oh
I mean, he's done more damage for his own self than anybody ever could do against him. And so when you sit there and you think about it, yeah, we've got people in the congregation that are nervous. And like Brian alluded to, the whole COVID thing throws a whole another element that we've never seen.
Yeah.
And so you don't know where to be. I mean, it's just, I wish, and this sounds so bad, but I wish that I could go to sleep and wake up in January of 2021, hoping that something will be different. But I don't think it's going to get different by 2021, regardless. I mean, I had a friend the other day, kind of tongue in cheek, text me and go, "Hey, are you wearing a red shirt tomorrow? Because I've never been in a Civil War. I don't know which one I'm supposed to wear." And I'm like, "Oh, you're such a dork." And then you turn on the news and it's like, holy crap, he may be onto something. I mean, because there is no win. This country is divided like it's never been before. Well, it probably was back in the Civil War, but we're at that point now
Yeah.
where, as a country, we are on the precipice of self-destruction, which, we had this discussion today, we've all said that the end of the book is coming, that we're close. Maybe this is the rock that's going to finally get kicked, that's going to turn that chapter 7. Here it you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at that point you do start looking east and go, okay, Lord, I need to be ready. I need to make sure that my household's ready. And you kind of game up differently. And you hate to, but again, we all know it's inevitable. If we've
Yeah.
ever read that book, we know it's coming. And I firmly believe that our generation will be the one that gets. And I'm sure that my mom and dad's generation and their generation, I mean, they've been
Yeah.
saying it since
Everybody thought about it.
everybody. But I'll tell you what, right now, as I view it, we are a perfect storm for something big. And I'm not saying it's going to be World War III, but I'll say I think the United States is on a path to potential ruin. Unfortunately, you look at the news and they show all these cities that are being looted and rioted, and it's like, but why? I mean, that's just anarchy. That's just antichrist, and that's the spirit of, not the person, but the spirit of, that's just absolute hellish,
Yeah.
And thankfully, living down in our little bubble, we don't have that. Um, but that doesn't mean that we don't have people that either snowbird down here for the winter that are part of it, and we'll hear
Yeah.
from them.
Yeah.
I've got family in the Northwest. My parents live in Vancouver, Washington, which is right across the pond from Portland, Oregon. And every morning they wake up and they say, "Well, yeah, Portland's still on fire." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" "Oh, yeah." you know and then, I mean, it's just, but I'll tell you what, as soon as the polls um closed on Tuesday, it was like bing bing bing, it was California, Oregon, Washington all went blue. And it's like, well, obviously they don't care, or somebody would have said something. I mean, obviously they're not too tired of it. But
Yeah.
again, like Montana, it's spread out enough. Yeah, you've got your populations in Portland, Salem, and Medford, but um the people over in Bend, over in Burns, they're just scratching their heads and, all right, let's go get the cattle. I mean, they're just living that rural life that I really would like to live.
Yeah. 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 So are a lot of your congregations like staying home with everything going on right now?
With the way that our governor has done, he has put a moratorium on mass gatherings. At least for churches, we can't do anything inside. So we've been outside. We've got a facility that'll accommodate. Outside, we've been having 300 people on a Sunday.
Wow.
I think our highest number was 312, and our lowest was like 273, 274, something like that. So I mean, we got people that come, but what's really weird is the people that are showing up are people that I've never seen before. I mean, not all of them, but we're seeing a big chunk of these people that are new. And when we were shut down during that whole COVID thing, we did online just like everybody else did. And I think that reached a demographic that we hadn't touched before. Um, Again, our church is your grandparents' church, and it's very inward thinking. We don't do a lot of external. We don't think about much outside of our four walls. We take care of our own. And that's just the model that has always been. That's the culture that we live within. But again, we have a huge population. Yeah, it's safe to say I'm going to say it's bigger than, and that's the homosexual community. They
Yeah.
have come in and they're huge. Well, they're not going to come to our church. We have some that do, and we welcome them. And I mean, I high five, hug, do whatever I need to do, because again, it's you love the person, not the same. Anyway, I'm not going there. But
Yep.
so
Amen.
we have people that are staying away. Again, it's not because of fear. Well, it is because of fear, but they're
Right.
of that age that they're in that demographic of, well, they have high blood pressure, they've got pre-existing issues. And so, you know what? I'm going to stay home and I'll watch it on my TV and
Hmm.
have my cup of coffee and my plate of eggs and toast. And I'm okay with that. And we had some people, dear people, man, I love these people. They came to the church office a couple weeks ago. It's actually probably been a month now because we're back outside, but um, he just broke down, said, I miss coming to church. I need that fellowship. And I
Yeah.
said, well, we're going to be here on Sunday if you guys want to come. Oh, we will be here. Well, it wasn't, I don't know, church had been going for maybe 15 minutes. And she came up and goes, can we get a couple chairs? And I thought, oh my gosh, really? You know what? Yes, let me get you some chairs. So I took them clear in the back corner of the sanctuary, and they sat back there and they were tickled pink. Haven't seen them since. And they were
Yeah.
just overwhelmed. And he's got some heart issues, and again, they're protecting themselves. Um,
Yeah.
we've been very, very blessed in the fact that we have nobody. And again, we have a school going on right now. And so we've got K through 12 on campus 5 days a week.
Cool.
And we haven't even had a temperature. So, I mean, God has put his hand on our campus. We haven't had anybody get COVID. We've had some people pass away, but of just normal things, old
Yeah.
age mostly. But,
Yeah.
um, and that's the other weird thing is you can't have a funeral because,
Yeah.
these people have friends, but you
Yeah.
can only have 10 people show up. Well, how stupid is that?
Yeah.
Let's have it at the Costco because we can get a lot of people at Costco. We
Yeah.
can just throw him up there on the cold block and we're good to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's asinine. It's just backwards. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
What about you, Brian? Oh, and we only have like 7 minutes left, but at least before the time runs out. I didn't know it's already been. I've been enjoying this so much here,
No,
but
no. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing for us. I mean, I think it's just a different time, right? I mean, and like, because I'm no longer on staff at my church, and so I've hardly been going, and I just been focusing on school. So like, I preached this last weekend for my pastor, um, and so I hadn't seen people in like months, but like, it's interesting because, um, like the government shut us all down initially, and so like we have to like, um, they want us to put like plexiglass up and like, so for the droplets and like it's insane. So like what our church did, which I mean it looks ghetto, and even I was telling my senior pastor like coming in, and I told him like, hey, like I think we're like the only church that's doing this, because like our friend's church, like what they do is like they have like a plexiglass on a roller in front of the singer, but after
oh,
they're done singing, like they just move it away, right? But literally, I preached like in a like it's almost like a plexiglass cage, like so there's no droplets, right? And so
No.
yeah, it's like it's super weird, right? It's super weird. And so like I literally like held up a sign like when I started my message. I said, hey, just like as a reminder for you guys in the house, like it's different if you're joining us online, but when you come inside like in person, like I just want to warn you guys, like there is something that you guys need to know when you guys come. And I held up a sign that says, do not feed the animal, because that's literally what I felt like. It's like I'm an animal in a cage, right? And people were laughing, but it's weird, but like we've seen like we've seen our numbers like quadruple at on weekends just on our online presence. And so like
Yep.
I mean like I
Wow.
think like in general, and that's what we hear like from other churches, around us, is like the just the online presence. Now it could be like me watching four different churches or whatever, but I mean you can put you can pull analytics from Google and different things, but um
Right.
you know like I think that's the blessing in it all, is like the amount that the church has been able to reach um,
Yes.
across the world. I think the blessing in this whole pandemic, and I think it just makes us look at how we do church differently, like how we can do church differently. And somebody just asked me like, moving forward, how do you think that the church will change, or do you think that the church needs to change? And I said I think one of the things that the church really needs to put a real big emphasis on, I think for our church in particular, is the discipleship part. Is, are we really discipling people to reach their friends, to reach their neighbors, to reach your family? Because that's what it's
That's
going to
good.
take. That's what it's going to take. That's really what it's going to take. And we got to give people the tools on how I can reach my friends, my family, my neighbor. So
That's
Wow.
good.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Yeah, I don't know, our church up here, the last couple of minutes, I guess, that we got, it's been kind of interesting. We have, we had probably, we've probably been running 50% capacity. We were averaging probably close to 300, I'd say, plus. And now we're kind of lucky if we hit 150 on a Sunday. Billings has a big medical community. Like the hospital here in the city is a big employer for a lot of people. So we actually have a lot of nurses that attend our church, and a lot of them feel a lot of pressure to be super uptight. So like they feel like their employer, the hospitals, are basically not letting them do anything, even though it's not officially policy. They're feeling a lot of pressure to just basically not go anywhere or do anything. So I know
I've heard
that's
the
been
same.
that's been really taxing on them.
yeah,
I haven't noticed our online presence and be extremely noticeable. I mean, I felt like once we've opened up, so that may, I mean, we're sort of opened up more than you guys, I would say. But when we were, we didn't notice really any sizable difference on our end of things, just in terms of our online presence. Now, I don't know about some of the other churches that are a little more technologically savvy, you know. I don't know how they're doing. I would imagine they're doing fine, I suppose. But yeah, so we're it's definitely been challenging trying to figure out how do we, like you guys said, how do we reimagine, how do we reach people,
yeah,
trying to plan for any sort of events. Like we did a marriage night here like a couple weeks ago, and we had 25 couples show up, and it was just like, man, that didn't see that coming. Didn't think that
yeah.
was gonna work, but it did, you know. So anyway, but God still is at work, and
Amen
we
to
just
that.
gotta trust Him. So we got a minute here. You guys are doing good. You're doing good in your work. Just keep pressing on. I think it actually does get easier after when we move into the kind of secondary book, the honor, patronage, kinship, purity. So I actually think it'll be a little easier, but just keep up the good work. And if you have any specific questions, just go ahead, email me directly if you need to. But I have enjoyed talking with you and just getting to know you a bit.
Yeah,
So
Likewise.
yeah.
I hope you guys have a really nice night. Looks like our time's up here in just a sec, but I hope you have a nice night, good time with your family, and just good for you guys working hard in ministry and loving people for Jesus.
Man.
There you go.
All right, you guys.
All right.
I'm going to sign off here. All right, I'll talk
All
to
right.
you
Have
later.
a good one.
Hey, you too.
All right,
Bye.
thanks, guys. Bye.